Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Saladino.
Welcome back.
Okay, so when BioBeware announced their restructuring, Grumps put out this tweet. If you could fix BioBeware, what would you do? The first thing I'd do is fire all the women, the trans women, non-binary people, and the LGBTQ activists. Not because of their gender, identity, or sexuality, but because of their ideology. The entire Western gaming industry is compromised. Look at this from The Gamer. I'm going to have to read this article at some point. Women and non-binary devs now make up 32% of all game developers, which is up from 24% in 2023. If it only takes one bad apple to spoil the entire bunch, look at what's happened since this woke virus took over male hobbies. Look at what's happened to BioBeware. Look at what a trans woman and a non-binary writer, as well as actual female staff writers, did to Dragon Age. Just as an aside, I don't know what it is, but there's something about a man calling himself non-binary that I just find somehow worse than a man calling himself a woman. There's something, stupid and even more pathetic about it. I guess because at least with trans, in some instances, it's an actual mental condition. But with non-binary, it's not a dysphoria. It's not anything. It's just some idiot saying, I'm not a man or a woman. I'm not Patrick Weeks. I'm Trick Weeks. It's a trick, all right. The whole thing with Tosh, I don't feel like a woman. It feels right when they say I'm actually more like a man than a woman. What does it mean to feel like a woman? What does it mean to feel like a man? I said this somewhere else, but when the average normal man or woman says, I'm a man or I'm a woman, they're not talking about how they feel. They're referring to biology. They're referring to the fact that they can just look at themselves and see that they're either a male or a female. Just look at their body parts. This is what's so stupid and pernicious and downright evil about gender ideology. It really is just down to how some narcissist or some sociopath feels about something and wanting to impose that on everyone around them. And even though they're literally less than 1% of the population, the entire world is supposed to be held captive by this stupidity. And they specifically went after male hobbies, male spaces, to use as their platform. Again, BioWare hired a trans woman who put top surgery scars in The Sims. They hired this entity, as Kyle would say, to direct a Dragon Age game. Dragon Age. These idiots really thought owning the chuds was a sound business strategy. Any gamer could have told you what was going to happen next.
Oh my God!
So here's this person, Anne LeMay. I think I'm familiar with her. I think I remember seeing her in interviews and stuff before, but she's here posting on Blue Sky, which is a reverse Twitter, I guess, these days. I was a writer at BioWare for 5 years, 2011 to 2016. I leaned a lot during that time from exceptional folks and many disciplines. Lean back, mama. But no, so people are clowning her for, she typed leaned instead of learned. And I guess, I'll allow that. Folks is what bothers me more. F-O-L-X, which should be F-O-L-K-S. Folks is already gender neutral, but woke people are so petty. They're so stupid. They do that newspeak thing where they take words and then they change it to mean something different than what it should mean. But then they also just change words in a way to own it. So even though they know that F-O-L-K-S is gender neutral, they have to add an X to it because they want to smash the patriarchy or something. I don't know. It's so stupid. But anyway, so she leaned a lot, learned a lot during that time from exceptional folks in many disciplines, but also specifically from my fellow writers and our amazing editors on both the Mass Effect and Dragon Age brands, ME and DA brands. Today, not a single one of those writers and editors remains employed there.
I'll have to ask my accountant about that.
It looks like the entirety of Dragon Age the Veil Guard's main credited writing team is now no longer working at BioWare. Following the studio's latest bit of downsizing, the final few remaining writers appear to have departed. I love how this website put it in this category, Sigh. That's 9 writers, unless the most recent departures end up being brought back in some capacity on the latest Dragon Age game, no longer working for BioWare, at least on a full-time basis. Veilguard game director Corinne Bush also revealed earlier this month that she's leaving BioWare to work on a new RPG elsewhere.
They're all gone.
Given that, despite what idiots on the internet might say, Veilguard was far from an unmitigated disaster of a game. Yeah, far from an unmitigated disaster of a game, yet every writer that worked on it was kicked out of BioWare. It's funny how they do this weird cope thing where they act like, no, the way it's being framed online isn't really what's happening, even though what you're seeing is actually happening. Even if it didn't hit the potentially overzealous targets EA set for it financially, this is one of the biggest franchises in Western gaming. In all of gaming, really. Wasn't the last Dragon Age the biggest BioWare game of them all? Even if it didn't hit the potentially overzealous targets EA set for it financially, it'll be sad if indeed the entire writing team behind it, aside from perhaps from some localizers who are listed as part of other teams, have indeed either been shown the door or departed the studio on their own terms. Why? Why would it be sad? They made a terrible game, an objectively terrible game, just by looking at how you're supposed to be making a dark fantasy game, and yet you're putting in this gender ideology bullshit in it. You decide to take a detour into things like that that don't have anything to do with why people play video games. Especially since many were longtime Dragon Age series stalwarts who'd also worked on previous entries in the series. And yet they decided, after years of knowing what worked, to stop doing that and pivot to
modern audience.
The games industry in 2025. Definitely a healthy place to work without the constant shadow of potential turnover or just being chucked into the sun by some corporately mandated restructuring. I like how this clown doesn't acknowledge the fact that a bunch of activists, again, decided their ideology was more important than delivering a grim, dark fantasy RPG for the largest audience possible. Look at this. This is the kind of fan art Dragon Age the Veilguard inspired. It's not even to say that this is bad art, but this doesn't look like a game called Dragon Age. Oh, you know what? Maybe it does. With the Tumblrification of male hobbies, I don't know, maybe it does look like a game called Dragon Age. This is the problem with echo chambers. This is the problem with toxic positivity. These things may help you get up in the morning and deal with, I don't know, social media culture or whatever. But you're in business to make money. You're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a game, and at some point, despite the fact that you think it's your job to indoctrinate society with your gender ideology, gay activist bullshit, it's EA's job to make money. And the thing is, nobody is really that stupid to believe that the ham-fisted way they force these ideas into a fantasy game, deliberately breaking immersion every chance they got with their messaging, nobody believes that that's the best way to persuade people to your side, to make you see what you want them to see. Well, maybe this idiot does because he's got pronouns in his bio. Another aside. New rules. No straight man is allowed to put pronouns in his bio. As a matter of fact, no gay man is allowed to put pronouns in his bio either. If you're a gay man that needs to tell people that you see yourself as a man, then you're not gay at all. Because being a man is what makes your attraction to other men gay.
Ha! Gay!
BioWare Studio Update. Hello everyone. Today, we are turning towards the future and preparing for the next chapter in BioWare's story. As we announced in August 2023, we are changing how we build games to meet the needs of our upcoming projects and hold ourselves to the highest quality standards. Now that Dragon Age the Veilguard has been released, a core team at BioWare is developing the next Mass Effect game under the leadership of veterans from the original trilogy, including Mike Gamble, Preston Watamaniuk, Derek Watts, Parrish Lay, and others. In keeping with our fierce commitment to innovating during the development and delivery of Mass Effect, we have challenged ourselves to think deeply about delivering the best experience to our fans. We are taking this opportunity between full development cycles to reimagine how we work at BioWare. Given the stage of development, we don't require support from the full studio. You can go Corinne Bush. You can go Trick Weeks. You can go Catherine Ann Bigelow, whoever you are. We have incredible talent here at BioWare. And so we have worked diligently over the past few months to match many of our colleagues with other teams at EA that had open roles that were a strong fit. Today's news will see BioWare become a more agile, focused studio that produces unforgettable RPGs. We appreciate your support as we build a new future for BioWare. England prevails. Gary McKay, General Manager, BioWare. I'm not sure I trust this restructuring because of how half-assed everything has to be. Now, to be fair, as far as we can see now, BioWare wasn't being half-assed about getting rid of all the clowns who fucked up Dragon Age. But a lot of those people who worked on Dragon Age had been at the studio for years before this woke bullshit had even started. And it's not like, the thing is, BioWare didn't just come out and tell people, hey, look, we got it. We know we fucked up with the Veil Guard, so we fired everybody.
I'm never doing that again.
But they would never come out and just do that. Just say what they know that gamers want to hear. Because for some reason, it's more important to them to appease shills and the press than to just say, hey, look, we support our gamers. We're trying to do things that we know our gamers want. And we're not listening to people who don't really care about this hobby, don't really care about our games, who are using it as a platform for their agenda, for their ideology, as this weird sort of, comfy blanket to mollycoddle and coddle their feelings about their gender ideology or dysphoria or their political ideas and political activism, stuff like that. The rot in Western gaming is still there. So even with all the assholes gone, I wouldn't be surprised if these so-called legendary veterans who have been brought back to do Mass Effect won't still put shit in the game that they know gamers don't want. Remember, it was these Mass Effect BioWare stalwarts who decided to censor Miranda Loss's ass from the remasters. Mac Walters, the project director for Mass Effect Legendary Edition, is responsible for the decision to modify certain camera angles and scenes featuring Miranda Lawson. In an interview with Metro, Walters mentioned that Kevin Meek, what a name, the character and environment director, pointed out some camera cuts that were focusing too much on Miranda's buttocks.
Mrs. Palmer, there are things dark and heinous in this world.
The team decided to alter these angles to address elements they felt no longer made sense in the context of the game's lore. Let me finish. And to respect the artistic integrity of the original trilogy. You don't respect the artistic integrity of something by censoring it. And this bullshit that nice ass shots break the game's lore it's funny how they could use words like non-binary and transgender in a fantasy game. But, oh no, a nice ass shot is... That's breaking the lore somehow. And I know part of that, what they're saying is this weird justification. Because people was like, why are you censoring this shot? Like, what are you doing? What is the point to this? And people are trying to say, well, it's not about being a prude. It's not about feminism. It's about the fact that that scene in particular, one of the scenes, but this wasn't just the one scene that they edited her ass out. There was a couple of scenes that they edited her ass out. But that one particular scene, the main one we all see, they talk about, well, it was because it was an important emotional scene because she was talking about being worried about her sister. But the thing is, she wasn't talking about being worried about her sister dying or being in trouble or being carried off in white slavery. She was just saying that I don't want my dad to have influence over my little sister. She'd be better off doing something else because of all the things I went through. He made me the perfect woman, and I don't want that for my sister for whatever reason, right? It wasn't like it was this terrible, devastating emotional thing. If anything, showing her ass like that is perfect as far as she's trying to convince Shepard to help her get her sister away from her fault, right? So if she's showing that ass, that's a way of like being seductive, like being a femme fatale. It had nothing to do with this, well, you're cheapening this scene because you're showing this ass, but it's such a serious moment about how much she's worried about her sister. But she's worried about her sister. She wants you to help her. So she's using her ass to entice you. You could just see it like that. So there's no lore breaking in it. It was about prudism. It's about feminism. It's about taking things away from straight men. That's all that was. But this is what I mean about half-assed, so to speak. Even though BioWare got rid of a lot of bad staff members, the rot is still there. In their hearts and in their minds. They're always going to be walking on eggshells, afraid of the press, afraid of social media, afraid of the toxic positivity that still lingers in the air because of years of people like Corinne Bush deciding that Dragon Age is a queer game for queer gamers. As a queer trans woman, she says, I have a perspective on the games that not everyone has. Dragon Age has long been a place where LGBTQIA plus Control Z V X folks, well, Bush didn't say folks with an X, can see people like themselves represented respectfully. It's inherently very queer, and it's such a rare thing for marginalized communities to have representation where we feel proud and powerful in how we are depicted. It's so deeply meaningful for so many. I often get emotional when I think about what it would have meant for a younger version of myself to see someone like her in a game, and as a hero, no less.
What a fucking liar, dude. What a fucking Weasley little liar, dude. What a fucking Weasley little liar, dude. Holy shit, dude.
Excuse me.
Holy
Sorry.
fucking
I'm out of
shit,
control.
dude.
I apologize for that.
Literally lying. Still lying to his audience.
I hope it can be a safe place for our queer players to know they are not alone. They always say this safe place bullshit. What safe? Like, you're playing a game. This is a single player game. You're playing a game. Like, not everything you are has to be about who you think you are. Let's play a game. Let's play a story. Just role play. Role play another character. Okay, so I hope we can be a safe place for our queer players to know they are not alone, that they are brilliant and worthy, that they are not only welcomed, but celebrated. That's the thing. This is what it's all about. Like the woman who's going to play that stupid character in that new, what is it, the Unapologetic Heretic, or whatever the name of that game is from Naughty Dog, where she's sitting there talking about, get over it. It's time to celebrate the wonders and beauties of non-binary and transgender, all this nonsense. Like, no, just be tolerated. Just exist like everybody else. Everybody else is just being tolerated. Not everybody's being celebrated just for existing, just for having some weird sense of themselves. So stupid. And after all that virtue signaling, what happened? This is how it started. The virtue signaling. This is how it ended. Destroys the entire franchise, leaves.
God damn it! You can't make this shit up!
But this virtual signaling nonsense, this, we're making games a safe space for our queer friends. This is the mindset that gets spread throughout an entire company, and no one is allowed to push back even a little bit because of how weaponized sexuality and gender identity has become in male spaces. So your once wild, raucous, fun, sexy, over-the-top sci-fi fantasy RPG has to be toned down because of some bullshit only a feminist would complain about. So, ending where I began, so to speak, with Grums. I read all your suggestions on fixing BioWare. I'm sorry, but you're all wrong. This is all you need to bring back to fix BioWare.
He's out of line, but he's right.
We're breaking the law, breaking the world together. Throwing out all tenderness, we're breaking the rules.